Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Digital Experience Sprint Retrospective for this release cycle, March, and it is the 25th today. We'll start off. Are we starting off with things that went well? I guess I said that, so that's what we're doing. Yeah, I'm not sure who wrote this first item, but if you did, please speak up.
That was me. I forgot to put my name. Things that went well for me was internal and cross-team collaboration with the events templates. I felt that people responded quickly with quick decisions and proactive problem solving. There was very little need to manage expectations. Everyone's really onboarded to the iterative approach, which I appreciate. Next is Laura.
We have ongoing conversations about our grid system, a happy accident where we discovered Tailwind kind of does everything we needed to do out of the box. So that's great. And I'm glad that like Javi and anyone else who's involved in grid discussions was able to kind of align with me on that. And I think Sungmi, you're up next.
Okay, thank you. So this week, one of the things that went super well for me is my first templating experience on Ruby. And thanks to Tyler, he's the one that has been hoping that this will come to pass. And yeah, I think it's coming. On personal projects, I still don't think I'm going to be using Ruby, but now I think I'm feeling comfortable working my way around and knowing what I'm doing. So that actually went well. And thanks to everyone that has been working on that stack for a very long time. There was good documentation, and I already see how files correlate with each other, especially Brandon and Lauren. Thanks a lot. That's awesome. Yep. And Avi.
I think it's me.
Oh, Jesse.
The other Jay. Yeah, I just want to shout out Lauren for leading our latest Git 101 class. It was awesome. Love your enthusiasm always. And ever so slowly beginning to understand GitLab. I think now it's Javi.
Just realized, Jess, our initials are like one letter away from being
so
like
close.
The same. Yeah. Okay. I just wanted to shout out that our code reviews have gotten a lot better. Like I think the quality of the feedback that we give each other has gone way up, at least like since we started here. So I would encourage us to continue like that trend, because like I think like when I first came, I like didn't know what to look for, and I think like as we've gotten like a groove and more comfortable with each other, it's like easier for me to say like this is good, this is bad, like we should change this, like this is a suggestion that's not blocking, this could help, this could not help. Yeah. Up next is Lauren Parker.
Yeah, the blog post template deployment went well, and the Slack announcement helped by giving places people can add direct feedback that needs to happen right away and for future iterations. And everyone hopped in and it landed.
Cool. So I guess unless Laura wants to vocalize that little note below, we can go on to the things to improve on for next sprint cycle. And it looks like Javi is up first.
Yeah. This is kind of a little bit related to like this bigger point that I think some of you all have put in the things to improve on, like in your own sections. But like I think I see this issue like more so like when I'm actually trying to publish NPM, where it's like if we're on version 0.7.4 and two people are working on things concurrently, like who gets to get like the 0.5 bump? And sometimes like if let's say this is something that happened where it's like, and this is like totally like there's no way to know, like Tyler was working on something because he was like trying to leave before Friday, and like I was also working on something on Friday, and like I think we started using like the alpha tags like differently, so we both had like different alpha versions of like the same thing. And so then when we went to the full version, it was just like, oh shoot. So then what I had to do like after he was gone like was essentially like say like, all right, like I'm version this, like 0.7.6 for instance, and then Tyler's version are 0.7, and then I have to make like a 0.7.8 that has both of our changes. And so like stuff like that was just annoying the rebase was like crazy because it's like you have to find like in what order do you want like the things to be like brought in, and so that was a pain in the butt. We should find a better way to deal with that. Another thing that I have on my next point right here, actually I have 3 points. Wow. Okay. Point number 2 is just like, how do we go about backlogging stuff? I think like Sami in the beginning of the sprint was like, I'm not really sure what to work on. And I feel like it makes sense to like, I don't know, like improve that process like a little more. And I don't know what that would look like. And I don't know what suggestions people have for that, but just like in my head, it's like, we have requests that people give us. And then like for it to reach the backlog, like a backlog, like we have to go through and like make sure that the request is like a reasonable request, something that we can reasonably deliver in 2 weeks period of time. Like it's like been like refined. So that's like what I have. And I see people writing comments if people want to jump in.
I put everything in the inbound marketing backlog milestone, which is giant and unmanageable, but that's where they live right now.
Yeah, so I think in terms of how to prioritize the work, part of that is during the sprint planning. Like we know that there's stuff coming in, we know that there's stuff we want to do, and we can all, talk about what projects we propose that we work on that sprint. Obviously, that doesn't help the things that are in the backlog, so it's kind of going to be a discovery process of how we can do that moving forward. But there's always going to be too much to do. That's just the nature of having the workforce that we do at a company as large as we do, and there's always more projects that everyone wants to do. But yeah, how do we prioritize that? Good question, but it's important to focus on the OKRs.
I have a couple epics that I've was talking to Michael with, and that happened to this one. What do you guys think about adding these epics or issues to our sprint doc, so that we all know that they're there, and then we can choose issues from them, like before every sprint, like, oh hey everyone, we should probably be looking at these things.
Yeah,
we don't have to, but
Very
just
good idea.
okay.
yeah, I think
Plus
we're all in
one.
agreement.
Yeah, I think I'm always like combing through my past history and like links and whatever, trying to find which OKR tickets and stuff. Yeah, having a single source of truth would be awesome. And then if we want to do work that fits within one of those, we can create issues within those epics and they're easy to find. Yes, love.
Yeah, sounds good. I've been keeping a personal bookmarking list of the things I should be working on, which I just realized does not help everyone else. So yes, having those in the planning doc would absolutely help us, I think.
Sweet. And then very quick last point. Like in my head, I don't know. I was thinking about this earlier today. Is like people are gonna like stumble onto slippers and like be like, what's this? Like, what is all this code stuff? Like, what does this mean to me? Like, I feel like that we should have like an entry point that's not so like so tied to understanding how code works. So it's like people can like just like consume it, understand the concept, and like if they don't necessarily care how it works, like they don't have to know. We can have, I know there's like a lot of different ways to go about it, but that's just something that I wanted to bring up. If anyone has like points on that.
I thought that was Storybook, like the website.
It has a lot of like code stuff in it, if that makes sense. Like you open it and it's just like yeah, there's like a lot of there. Yeah. And I saw someone put a point. So if you want to talk about it, whoever did that.
Well, are you looking forward to develop a cartoon animation explaining sleepers? Like, oh, well, the sleepers. I'm just kidding.
Hippie.
I mean, I wouldn't be opposed, but like I think there's a better solution. I don't know. I think there's.
I think. Go ahead, Javi.
This is all you. I think I know what you're gonna say.
Well, I was gonna say. Well, you may or may not know. Like we did a little run through of Figma last week, and then we have Storybook, and then we have Tailwind. Like they're in and of the same thing. So I think it would probably be a good idea to align on a video to get people to understand. Like it's not just like Michael kind of pointed it out. If we just did a video on Figma, would make it look like that's all we're producing, which is just a couple of graphics in Figma, which is not really the case at all. So it would be a great idea, I think, to align, and we don't have to do it this sprint, but whenever to say like this is all in the one thing, but it's just 3 different touch points and how this team outputs productivity. So not just showing them in isolation. So we talk about Storybook in isolation, then we talk about Tailwind in isolation, when in actual fact they all connect. So it might be an idea to do some sort of educational video on that to sort of take the weight off, so people know that everything is reflected in each other in a way.
Just to finish up this point really quickly, I think there's no way to completely like, at some point, like people just have to like read some things to understand what it is. I don't know, but anyway, that's like the last that I had. Laura, you're up next.
Yeah, kind of related to your versioning problems, is just specifically in Slippers, if I have 1 or 2 MRs open and then something gets merged in, anything that I have open has merge conflicts, and it's just that compiled CSS and the compiled JavaScript, or like, yeah, if you've added a new package, then your package JSON is going to be a conflict, which is fine. It's just a matter of like, checking out each branch, rebasing, or running a yarn build or whatever, like getting it, into a state where it's all up to date. It's just a pain to do that. We don't really need to be committing those compiled files because they get rebuilt on merge and on release kind of thing. So maybe if we add them to a git ignore or whatever, like some sort of way to just like, nope, we don't commit these like 1,000-line gobbledygook files that can't even be viewed in GitLab, in the interface. So if that's an improvement we're all kind of aligned on, it might be worth doing.
Yeah, I think the git ignore will be very, very important. I think Lauren, I think you spotted that on my present merge request about some CSS files that is in the dist folder, which shouldn't be compiling over and over again. So I think we should improve on that area, because I sense the same problem happening to me too. Yep.
Yeah, sweet. And one other thing I wanted to just go back when Javi was talking about the NPM versioning conflicts. Brandon and Sandy, you made some good points about maybe doing like an actual release cycle, like having a day that we release or something, and just we merge everything into master and then do like a release at some point when we all kind of align on it, but or at least some sort of communication around who's releasing what version. That might be helpful if we can figure out a way to do that. But yeah, cool. Lauren, you're up next.
Just piggyback on your comment on 8B. There's always going to be conflicts in dub. So I made a quick video this morning because there were other conflicts that Hanif was encountering. And this isn't really documented in a great form for anyone using dub. So let's make that better for everyone. I'm pretty spicy in my video, so should yeah, make like a doc. Okay, 9. What is the requirement to announce an MR is complete and ready for deployment? I put what I do, but I'd like to hear from y'all what that is. Thoughts?
I mean, I kind of go along with what Lauren outlined, and then also there's the MR checklist that's mentioned in certain templates, I think, and we have a handbook page on it, so I might add that item to her list of things. But that tends to be more of a, this is a larger thing. There's 2, I think I made 2 template versions of that, where one is like a shorter list and one's a longer list. But it's not just the code, right? It also covers things like, is this content inclusive, and other things that speak to company values. So it's always good to remember to go over that checklist as you're making those merge requests.
The last thing that I always do is just to check with the DRI of anything that I'm working with. That, okay, are you sure we should go live with this page? And if they say, yeah, we're fine, we can go live, then that is when I see it as complete.
One of the pieces of functionality that I've seen in the GitLab UI that I haven't used is, yeah, if you have merge requests that you've opened and you kind of go back and forth and you make changes and people are commenting and everything is changing. And then you hit a point where you think it's good, but maybe everyone else that was commenting and reviewing has kind of forgotten about it, or they don't know that you're ready. There is like a little request re-review, like little arrow beside their name as a reviewer or whatever. So like, I don't know what that does. I assume it like pings the person, like emails them and says like, please look again or whatever. So I don't know if we utilize that. I haven't, but I haven't had huge big pieces yet.
For the blog post, I had to use that at least once. Probably should have done it more because there's like 15 updates. So, and I want someone to actually check it after I've done all those updates before I launch it, because I almost deployed it and updated the entire release blog, which would have been super bad. And like, that was like final seconds, like, oh, nope, don't do that. Yeah, it's nice to get eyes on it.
I had like a quick question that just like escaped me. I'm like, it's gonna bother me now, but like, we'll keep going. I'll let you know if the question comes back. I remembered. Okay, so I know you all were gonna talk. Someone was gonna talk. Okay, wait. So notifications, like, how do you all have your notifications set up within like the GitLab interface? Because like I think right now I have like all emails turned off, and I have like I have weird situations where it's like sometimes I'll get tagged and I won't get notified, and like if I'm digging through the issue, like if I like look for the issue myself, I'll see my name tagged like mentioned like 3 days ago, and it's just like, why did this not like tell me? So I don't know.
Yeah, there's inconsistencies. I have all the emails sent, and then I have a folder in my Gmail that funnels all the notifications. And I look through it every morning, every lunch, every evening, and it's like 100, 200 sometimes. And then I have to select them all, delete it. And it's just like a quick visual way to like search through everything. Not great, but it's helped me because I don't get that to-do ping every time either.
Yeah, I would rather have blown up emails than to like miss something, in my opinion.
If you don't
You
look
can always,
at it, then you get 1,000, and then that's really bad.
and you can always create email filters too in Gmail. Like basically, say if it's @mentions_me, then put it in this folder, or if it's from so and so, put it in this folder and mark it as read, or whatever you want to do. There's ways to filter in Gmail, which is nice to have that extra layer of notification kind of sorting. Cool. Any other thoughts on that item? Should we move on? We can always async on that later too. So I think I'm up next, and kind of similar to what Javi and Jess were noticing about initials earlier. I've worked with Lauren for like 2 years now, and I guess I just never saw our initials next to each other. So like LB and BL, like, kind of like one typo away from missing the person's name. But anyway, fun little thing I just noticed. So yeah, I just wanted to remind us, because this happened to me this sprint, that seemingly small tasks can snowball out of control into larger ones. So just a reminder for us all to add buffer time to our projects. We don't actually know how long things are going to take. So yeah, that's always good to know. And I think Tina's up next.
I'm next, and it's pretty much the same as what Brendan just said. I didn't account for time spent on tasks that weren't actually related to my boards or my issues or my epics. So supporting the blog, for example. So it's a good reminder to undercommit so that you have capacity to help the rest of your team and to support your team on other things. Jess.
So I'm just continuing the conversation from the end of our UI to code meeting about how we want to hand off design to development in terms of an MR or an issue and who's in charge of creating that. Not everyone was there, so I don't think Laura or Sami was there, maybe others, but the consensus at the time was like MR was preferred, but then there was like an issue of that not showing up on the board. So I wasn't sure if that was gonna be like a blocker for us, if we still needed an issue just for tracking purposes. And how far in advance you guys would like notice, if at all, or you're just like, it's done, do it.
I will offer my opinion. We need to have the engineering issue so we can attach the MR to it so it shows up on our engineers' boards. I don't like that, but I don't see any way to get the MRs actually on our boards at this time.
And I think also having conversations about changes in the EMR is the preference for engineers. And then using the issue to be like, this is done, reviewed, closed, or having less conversations in the issues, more conversations in the EMR.
Like the engineering issue, it's just a shell issue. We don't need to spend a lot of time on drafting that, except for the labels, milestone, all that stuff.
And that doesn't mean that our design issues need to work like that. We need to have conversations in our design issues. So let's keep doing what we're doing with our design issues so that we can house the conversations there and link to those threads in the engineering MR when needed.
I also like the idea of having an issue for like just have the source of the Figma files and stuff that's assigned to an engineer. Opening an MR, it means, if I'm understanding this correctly, the MR would be like open the entire time that the eng work was also happening. And I don't know if now there's like an MR that's open that is the design, and then an MR that the engineer has created, or it's all one MR kind of thing.
There's no MR for design.
There's only one.
Well, that's what I thought we were asking about, was like creating MRs for the design handoff.
No, we only ever get issues if there's any design tasks.
I think there's confusion around when we hand it off. Are you guys going to be just doing an MR, or you also want to have an issue attached? And like, how much notice do you want that like the design work is going to be ending soon? Or like, do you want to know at the beginning of the project that we're working on this now, and like 2-3 weeks or maybe a month from now, you might have this on your plate? Or are you just cool with being like, okay, we finished this thing yesterday and now it's yours, do what you will? Like, that's the kind of stuff I'm looking for.
Is there a risk in that though, with like a hard handoff, which is something that I think we should definitely try and avoid? Like, that's always caused issues in my experience in the past, where it's all of a sudden, ta-da, here's something that you work on.
Well, that's why we have conversations with engineers in our design issues before it turns into an engineering issues. So I think, yeah.
I think from my perspective, I'll prefer just an MR for engineers, because I've seen that my conversations are being scattered all around. I have some conversation on the MR, I have some conversation on the issue for engineer, and I have another conversation on the issue for design. So I'm reading through 3 different threads, but I can eliminate the 3 just to 2. One single MR for engineering, where I can have all my discussion related to that. And if I still need to know anything about the design part, I can go back into that issue and look through. So instead of creating another extra issue for me, so I can handle every discussion for engineering just in the MR. So at the time when the design is ready, we can just, anybody can open an MR and assign it to anybody. So I think that can be a very smooth handing over from design to engineering. So for based on what Jesse is saying, that okay, what if the MR is not something we should work on right now? Yeah, then it can still be there for like maybe a couple of weeks before we start work on that. But I don't think engineering issue is necessary. I think it's causing more confusion.
But MRs don't show up on boards, so it's really hard for management. Yeah.
That's the only problem.
I'm trying to, so I know Becky was looking into other features that we can use in GitLab issue templates that we ended up not using for like the whole inbound marketing. I'm interested to see if we would be interested in looking into some of those ourselves, to see if like maybe there's ways for us to like be creative about, like, instead of having like the idea of like we have an engineering issue and then a design issue, it's like just an issue that we can figure out how to like, how the project management can still happen, but have one issue. I think that there could be some creative ways if we're like willing to go through that exploration process, but I'm not sure if any of you have in the past.
That sounds
So
like
I think,
a great idea to open an issue for and us all to discover and work on.
so I will add kind of my experience on that is, as an engineer, I want one final document starting point. I don't want to have to sort through all of the prior conversations. So like if we have one artifact, it's great to have that one artifact be the single source of truth. But then when I have to read through all of that to get to what I need, and so part of the things that have happened in the past is like, okay, that makes sense. We could solve that by putting the final bit of information that the engineer needs in the issue description. Well, then someone comes along and doesn't know that that's where the final information needs to be, and they're having more conversation, and then goals change and shift, and the updated description never happens. And so then you don't know, right? And so personally, I like to have, this is where the engineering is starting, and all prior discussions can continue to be ongoing, but like this is the non-shifting deliverable that I have, and then I can review later. So that's how it kind of ended up where it is in my head, but that's not to say we have to continue that way. It's just something to be aware of as we have these conversations moving forward.
I'd like to piggyback on that specifically for the events commit template. One or maybe a couple issues for Tina. That is going to turn into an epic for engineering with 20, 30 separate engineering issues. So that won't be a one-to-one use case.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I guess like in my head, there's like not like a one, at least what I'm seeing, there's like not a one size fits all. But I think it's just more so like communicating, like, what do we do in that case, for instance? And like, how does our team, especially when issues are flowing within us? I think sometimes we may run into issues when we start communicating with outside parties, but I think just like for us to have like an alignment, I think would make us a lot more efficient. So that could be an action item.
Good. So I think, go ahead.
Did we land on, we're going to be doing issues? I don't know if, or did we land on we're going to keep talking?
It sounds to me like the MR is going to be for where all the conversation happens, and the issue is just a shell to track things. And maybe even in the issue, we literally just say, please do everything in the MR, and just like leave it really blank so people are forced to go over there.
Cool. Okay,
That would be my suggestion.
Yeah, so design does all the design work, has their own design issue, and then design creates an engineering issue, links the design, and then engineers make an MR that closes that issue. Okay.
We can do that.
Cool.
And
Engineers should create their engineering issues because there might be many for one design.
Okay, so as soon as the design is ready, an engineer gets kind of tagged to say like,
hey, this is coming up. You might want to
it.
make an issue or an MR or whatever.
yes.
Cool.
And there's the caveat that we will explore other things that might make this process better for us, because it's a pain in the butt. I think we all agree that it's terrible.
Cool. Sounds like we got to a point where we know what to do for that now. Moving forward, and we can continue discussion and iteration after that. So yeah, I think that about covers our retro today. We have a few action items here that we have already discussed, but if we want to just kind of recap them really quick. So it looks like we should file an issue for merge conflicts and slippers, and investigating what we want to do with that, and add a list of epics and issues to our sprint planning doc, which is a good idea. We're all kind of very enthusiastic, thumbs up on that. And to look into project management for issues, and how we want to do that, how we can iterate on that to improve things moving forward. And looks like Jess is and kind of the conclusion of what we just talked about as well with design handoffs. So that's it for this week, everyone. Thank you very much, and we'll see you later.
Right, thank you.